Glad to see everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And what I'd like to do very much is to start by, this is a special meeting because there's really just two quick things on the agenda, although I think Diana wants to raise one other thing. I would like very much to remind us of our charge and remind us of the fact that all town meetings are open meetings, and we really value when members of the public listen or give comments, and if they want to be recognized, they can be. And I'm trying to pull up our charge so that we keep this in mind. And this is the charge that we were given by the planning board, by the select board last July. Specifically, our mission: the committee shall ensure protection of the town's farmlands, woodlands, wetlands, scenic views, and other open spaces vital in sustaining the town's historic, agricultural, and rural character, and in maintaining the quality of air, water, and wildlife habitat for the health and well-being of all residents. And we have specific strategies that we will follow to achieve this mission. We'll advise the select board on open space issues. We'll align our actions with the town's master plan and the open space and recreation plan, collaborate with all town boards and committees to achieve the mission, acquire funding through federal, state, local, and private sources to achieve the mission. We'll catalog priority lands for conservation and open space acquisition, develop long-term regular contact with significant landowners, and we'll assume the responsibility eventually for the town's open space and recreation plan update, which is generally every 7 years, and initiate the update process minimally 1 year prior to the expiration to avoid any period of lapse. Okay, so I just want to remind everybody of that, and I've done that before, and I think it's important we recall that that's our charge. Okay, stop share. So just to be sure I know everybody who's here, I see present Janet Brown, April West, Maureen Groden, Charlie McDonald, Marla Hank, Chris Fowles, Dan LaValle, Diana Fetterman, and myself, 9. And I'm not Ed Gibson, I'm Cindy Palmer. Is there anybody that I've missed? Okay. We're going to not do the minutes from the last meeting tonight. We're going to do them at the next regular meeting, which is next Thursday, right? So everybody got that on their calendar. Great. However, if there are members of the public present, would anybody like to raise a question or a comment of any kind? I see we have at least 2 people from the public at this time. Does anybody from the public, Chris Fowles or Marla Hank, want to raise a question tonight? Okay, I mean, you certainly can speak later on. Dan is here on behalf of Parks Commission because Paula Mack is out of town for a few weeks. Okay, so the first agenda item, which is really brief, I want people to just know a little update on what's happening on property 12, that's map 12, parcel 10, which is the one that we've been talking about. It is right next to a property that is already owned by the town. Formally called, right, Marla, formally called Durrell's Path. There's a question about whether that name should change because nobody seems to know where that name came up from. And for your information, Marla, I did speak with Chris. Chris had spoken with Ted Hendrick, and nobody can figure out where that name came from. The son, as you recall from the last meeting, who is representing his father, who is the owner, has indicated an interest in selling. Research has taken place since then. We've informed our town administrator that this is at least being discussed. And I did speak to a conservation appraiser. She only heard my description of the land. She didn't come, or there was no formal appraisal, there was nothing written, but she gave me a sense based on what we know of this property, which is on an unused road. This is not an abandoned road. It's just no longer being used by the town. And she gave us a sense that this is could probably get $1,000 per acre, just off the top of her head. So the decision was to go ahead and speak with the son and perhaps his father as well, Mr. Chinseri, and see if they want to talk about that or if they want a more formal appraisal before they would enter into any kind of an agreement with the town. I spoke to the son today, and I had emailed him as well. And what he'd like to do is he's very eager to speak to us, and Marla will be on the call because actually this will be an acquisition by the Conservation Commission, not by Open Space Committee. I spoke to him today. He would like to invite his sister, who lives, I think, in either North or South Carolina, to find out if she's interested in being on the phone call. So he needs a few days to organize that, and he can probably do this as a Zoom meeting. So we don't have an actual appointment to speak yet, but it sounds very hopeful that we'll at least have an opportunity to speak with these two people who are doing this for the benefit of their father. Is there any other questions you want to raise at this time? Any thoughts? Anyone?
Cindy, my internet is unstable, but did you say who the appraiser was, or you just said?
No, I didn't say. I did not say the person's name.
With a
female.
You did.
I'm sorry. It's a female appraiser. It doesn't really matter. Her name is Ellen Anderson. And she had, I watched a YouTube video. She had done some presentations, and she was wonderful. In fact, when we get to the next item on our agenda, I will mention her. No, I didn't say her name before that. So we can't officially say she's done an appraisal. So that's important that you note that. It was just a conversation.
But I would concur with her value on an acreage thing. I've heard that number quite a bit lately. So.
Quite a bit for land like this there's no public road access and it's totally undeveloped. Well, that's great, April. We were concerned about asking local realtors or people that do appraisals, like you have a great knowledge, but we didn't want it to appear to be any conflict of interest. We wanted somebody a little separated from from our town and certainly from the committee. But thanks, that's super helpful. I have a question for you, April, quickly. If they are in agreement with going forward, we're going to need a purchase and sale, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there'll be lots of steps.
Yeah, but there are standard forms out there that can be used without adding great cost.
Okay.
I would think that we could put together a fairly simple agreement using a standard Massachusetts land purchase contract form without having to enlist the services of Koppelman and Page to draft something like that.
Okay. That's very terrific. Wonderful. And just for your information, everybody, I believe Marla was going to send a proposal in for CPC's viewing at their next meeting, which is tomorrow night, because if this family really does want to get a formal appraisal, a conservation appraisal, then we are asking for money out of a particular account that's a CPC account, which is administrative. And I've checked with Virginia on this, and I know Janet knows a lot about this, that would not require going to town meeting. So that'll be discussed tomorrow night at CPC. I was hoping I'd have an answer with the family by then, but I will not because we won't have spoken by then. But if CPC may approve it, and then if it's needed, it's out there if we need to go that next step to get the appraisal. Okay? Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions right now? All right, more update at the next meeting. Second thing, has everybody received the draft? And it is a draft. A little more work needs to be done on the proposal for the neighborhood outreach funding. Now, I think I spoke about this at the last meeting. This is the same funding that Diana put the proposal in for to fund the gatherings that were held early in 2019. can't believe that was so long ago, that we had the 2 dinners at the church and also one guided nature walk with a naturalist. They put out the request for proposal, and I did the work on it, but I will say Diana helped me tremendously with a lot of editing ideas. And as you could hopefully see in that, and I'm not putting it on share screen because it's a lot of words. If you can see on there, the idea is to have 2 kinds of mailings. One mailing will be to all town residents, and it's not yet crafted yet. We haven't put it all together, but it'll include that that project that Charlie's been working on, or regarding the aquifer. So town residents will get a copy of that when it's completed. That'll be one thing, and also a cover letter, which will include information about the activities that we're going to hold. Time of COVID requires us to be pretty creative on activities, but also some expert speakers at open air presentations. And one of those expert speakers, who's already said yes, is Scott Jackson. He's have you heard of him, Dan? He's in the extension part of UMass, in the conservation area. He's published extensively. He's part of a lot of activities. He's also chairman of the board of Kestrel. And I've heard him speak. I think Diana was with me. We heard him speak many months ago up at the library in Easthampton. He's capable, dynamic, and he knows he's really the expert locally on climate resiliency and the effects on the forests of the Northeast. And I'm hoping to ask him if there's a very sort of user-friendly, or not user-friendly, but common person-friendly article about climate change and resiliency and the value of conservation that we could include in that mailing. I'll be thinking of other things to include in there as well. Maybe I haven't yet gotten that far, and your ideas will be helpful, but we have to get the funding first. So having said all that, what does anybody have questions about, or have you had a chance to look at it very closely?
It's really well written, Cindy.
Oh, that's Diana. That's what you say. Well written, Diana, because I wrote it, but she edited it. Okay.
Well, thank you both. So where did we get the statistics for the Southampton population and the ratio, the percentage of permanently conserved land?
That came from the Open Space and Recreation Plan update.
Okay, and population, I think we're over 6,000, aren't we?
No, not true. Believe it or not, and I checked with Lucy last week, we are under 6,000 right now.
Really? I thought it was 6,200.
It was, Rini, but right now, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me grab my numbers here. As of last week, the 27th, we have 5,924 people in town.
Really?
And of that, active, which I double checked what active meant. It meant, no, I didn't. I checked out. Yeah, active means registered voters, 4,822. Inactive, 7. Non-voters, which include children, 1,095. How about that?
That's amazing, because we use 6,200 in some of our other stuff.
Well, that's what it was, but that's what Lucy just gave me.
So what's the source of that information?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Lucy. My source is Lucy, but I don't know where she got it. It might be from the new census. I don't know if that's been counted.
That would be unusual that it would be done that quickly.
Yeah, it must be. I'm sorry, I don't have that answer. It's got this. Can anybody see this is on the top of see, this is what she sent me. Anybody see that? Anyway, it's got this thing called VRIS PPSO 70-3. I have no idea what that is. You want to check sometime or you want me to check, I will. Okay, so therefore that's that number. What else did you want to ask, April?
That was it on, on the request part for funding.
Yes.
We're going to do light refreshments at 4 gatherings. You've got $100. Is that per gathering or is that for all?
I think we can do 20. I'm of the, sorry to say, I'm of the opinion that there will not be a lot of people at some of these gatherings. And you hopefully also saw that I've already checked with Easthampton Media, and under our contract, our town's contract with Easthampton Media, they, especially if we can get a volunteer and not use a staff person, there's no cost to have this videotaped and then posted. So it can be on channel 191. So between COVID and the fact that some of our landowners are not even in town, and I'm speaking of the target area landowners, I don't know that we're going to get a lot of people at Conant Park. I hope not, to be honest with you. And my experience with gathering of people, they don't even want to drink some kind of commonly provided beverage because they want to bring their own, because they don't want to have to touch anything that somebody else touched.
Right, okay. Fair enough. We could offer free masks.
That's true. We could do that. Thank you. I have a whole box of them. Yeah. But nonetheless, that's why I propose low. Does anybody think that should be higher? Because I really didn't want to be stuck with a whole plate of cookies that nobody ate.
Just say no refreshments.
Well, we got $100. That's what's in the proposal. I think having some kind of beverage makes sense.
Hot cider,
If
maybe.
we have to get bottles of water or lemonade or something, I mean, it's depending on when these are offered.
Yeah. Well, that's another question. Diane and I threw around some ideas. I haven't checked with the booking of Conant Park, whether something's already booked. Weekends tend to be the more popular, obviously. Does anybody have an opinion about when these open air programs would help? Having said that, we might be able to get the staff of Easthampton Media to do the filming if it's during their workday, which is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. How do people feel about holding these presentations during the week versus a weekend? Any discussion about this?
Could there be different days and different times to accommodate people's schedules?
That's a good idea. A couple weekday ones and a couple weekend ones, yeah.
Some in the morning, some in the late afternoon or something.
That's a good idea. Anybody else have ideas on that?
I think with COVID, if this is all going to be, public and video, then I think it gives us more flexibility for time frame. Because you're right, we're not going to have large crowd. We don't want to have large crowds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in the cover letter of invitation of these things, I intend to request questions so people can email or mail in questions in advance. I'd really like it to be an interactive type of presentation, not just, people can watch a YouTube video if it's just that. So I'm hoping that some of us could be there to ask some questions and some landowners will be there to ask questions. And I intend to make personal phone calls to some landowners to be there if they can, to encourage them to be there and ask questions. Therefore, this isn't just a YouTube video. This is meant to be interactive. That's why I would like the speakers to be present if possible.
We could also offer to, include landowners that are not local via phone at the event too. So they could be listening in.
Oh, okay.
Able to ask questions.
That's a good idea. I suppose we could even get a Zoom invitation together somehow and Zoom the face of the speaker as part of the Zoom thing.
Dan can do that.
Depends on what kind of internet capabilities are there at Conant Park.
Good point. And there isn't any. I forgot about that. There isn't any Wi-Fi connection out there at all.
Well, we'd be next to the library. We may be able to tap into the library.
That would be a test. Okay. I don't know. Has anybody ever tried to do that, to connect with the internet at the pavilion?
You can do it from the parking lot, but I don't know about.
Yeah.
Or maybe a MiFi? Is that what that's
I
called,
kinda doubt
Dan?
it.
Is that right, Dan? Is it a MiFi that
Yeah,
is a remote Wi-Fi?
yeah. I mean, if you want to make it happen, I can make it happen.
Woo! Listen to him. That's great.
That's kind of my thing. That's kind of my thing.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's worth considering. That's good. So should we go with a couple of these would be on weekdays and a couple on weekends, depending on what schedule it is at Conant Park? And they would have to be mid-April to mid-May. Everything has to be done and the bills have to be in. This is not a match type funding. It is a reimbursement funding. And the bills have to be in no later than the end of May. It's a very important part of this whole thing. And we don't want to have it during freezing weather. Who knows what the weather will ever be in New England? We can never predict. But that would be the idea, that these would be mid-April to mid-May.
Sounds good.
So we'll do a varied kind of thing, like Janet suggested. What other questions or thoughts do you have about this proposal?
Just before you came on, I think Charlie and Janet were discussing the Barnes funding from the CPC. So we kind of need to straighten that out.
That's good. Charlie and Janet, I know you put the proposal in for that, right? That's already in. That's great. However, that has to take town meeting vote. Town meeting is not going to happen until what did you say, Rini? May 4th or something?
Yeah.
The idea is that's in, but if this comes through and we can utilize the funding of this proposal, the neighborhood outreach proposal, we don't have to use the CPC money, and we get the money, we can go ahead and utilize and, pay for it and then be reimbursed.
How much money is it, do you anticipate being awarded? Is it
Well, you see that right in there. I asked for
4,500?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They may not approve it all, but they only.
Yeah, Charlie was asking for 3,000, right? For just for the Barnes Aquifer pen.
How did you come up with 3,000, Charlie?
It was off the top of my head. I mean, I'm just, I haven't got a hard number from PVPC, but just printing, and if we go after a poster, design and printing of the poster as well as framing, those were the kinds of numbers I was coming up with.
Well, actually, the poster and the framing are not in this proposal. It's just the printing of the materials that would be mailed and the envelopes and the mailing. So therefore, you could still use that. If you get the CPC money, that could still come from CPC for the poster and the framing, which
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're coming in pretty close to your estimate and my estimate.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, other ideas here, other comments?
Janet, I have some little picky problems. I have the document that you sent to us, and I don't know if you could bring it, but it says Southampton's government includes an annual and special town meeting. Shouldn't that be plural meetings? Annual town meeting and special town meeting, or annual and special town meetings plural? Those are two different things, correct?
I think they're mentioned separately though. An annual town and a special, right?
And special town meeting, singular. Shouldn't it be plural?
Do we ever have more than one special town meeting in a year? Does anybody know?
No, but
Sometimes does that happen?
Yeah.
And the special town meeting are two different things. I don't know, it kind of worried me, the terminology.
It would be good to pluralize the special town meeting if it was something we do.
Well, then maybe
Here.
That's not Janet's point. Janet is correct. If you're saying the annual town and special town, then it would be meetings plural because the two together add up. That's what you're saying, Janet, right?
Why don't we just say annual town meeting? Because I think, I mean, these people don't really care in great detail how many town meetings we have.
or say annual
And I
town
think
and special.
annual town meeting sort of, I would just take out special town meeting. Just say we have a town meeting, government, and whatever else it says. Because that, special town meeting is a division of town meeting.
I think you're right.
That's what I think.
I would
And
agree
I
with
think-
you. Yeah. I think you raise a really good point grammatically, not my forte by any means, but I think if we just keep it to, we're a town meeting form of government with a select board and a municipal town administrator. Okay.
Okay, my other point is elected volunteers. A volunteer is not a volunteer is a person, an elected person is a person. You're not an elected volunteer, are you?
Yes, several of us are.
Well, I'm a volunteer and I'm elected.
And I'm a volunteer and I'm elected.
I think that one's probably okay. That's my thought.
I thought a volunteer was someone who walked up and said, I'd like to volunteer for this, and an elected person is the person who's voted in.
Well,
No?
boy, you are one of the biggest, most wonderful volunteers in our town, Janet, and you're elected to a lot of things.
I think it has to do with if you're being paid, so therefore you're a volunteer, but some of the volunteers, like I am, are appointed. We're not elected, but we're still volunteers.
Right. I don't know, I just didn't think you were, I'm not an elected volunteer, I volunteered, so I don't know. Okay, if that doesn't bother.
So I suppose it should say elected or appointed volunteers, because you're appointed from.
Say that.
Look at volunteers. Just take out elected.
Okay, we'll just say volunteers.
Okay. My next picky thing is in down the paragraph that starts, it's on page 2. Most town residents, that paragraph there, if anybody's looking at this, it
I
says,
am, yeah.
okay, it says, however, all residents need education on a variety of conservation projects. Shouldn't it be the variety of conservation projects? Need education on the variety of conservation projects. I mean, that's
I don't know.
just a
Oh my God.
That's just a little
Now we're
bit hair
editing
splitting.
DNA. Now we're editing the articles.
I don't know, Janet. I
Take
think
out
it
a
works
variety.
either way.
Just say all residents need education on blah, blah, blah.
on the variety of I don't know, just a variety.
How about just on conservation topics?
Okay, we'll take out the article.
Take out
Take out the variety. Okay, I don't know. It's your choice. And in the next paragraphs, it says, all residents will receive a mail notice of the live programs. Live.
Yes, that's what I'm saying,
Should be.
because there will be these live,
What does live mean? What about active or live programs?
well, live means they're not taped.
I think in pandemic terms, we need to have that language.
Yeah. Live means they're going to be happening at Conan Park. Is there a better word than live in this circumstance?
Someone personally is going to be presenting the program? Is that what you mean?
Maybe it shouldn't be live, it should be open air programs.
Or active?
Yeah.
I thought active.
Open air sounds good to me.
Okay, well, I think these are big. Maybe we'll look at it again on that one. Is there others, Janet?
I just like to proofread, so ignore me.
I'm not ignoring you. You speak and we value it. Is there other stuff, Janet?
No.
I'll tell you what, if you like to proofread, and I don't know that this meeting is the ideal time to do proofreading. So what I'm going to do is invite you to look at it again, but offline, if that's okay with you.
I'm done. I knew it was a little much, but I'm done.
Okay.
Janet, sometimes when I get stuff from the select board, instead of like, in the middle of a meeting saying, that should be plural and this should be whatever, I like to proofread too. I just send Ed comments, like if it's not a content thing per se, sometimes it's just easier to just send them.
Yeah. Grammatical things bother me.
I'm going to invite you to look at it again before I send it, because it's not going out until I think Thursday or Friday.
No,
You must have had a good English teacher.
No, it's a fantastic job. It really is good. I like that.
Okay. And there's a couple parts that are not done that I'm going to be working on, and that's you noted the three, I'm referring to them as target areas, one being Pomeroy Mountain all the way going down to connect with Clearwater Woodlands, and that would include the two major properties that we've, had in our minds for a while. You remember that there was this potential for, we don't know how real it is, but this potential for the Holyoke Beagle Club to want to sell. And the other one is the property that's absolutely right next to Clearwater Woodlands, which is owned by the family, the heirs to Mr. Hendrick, who passed away, the Robert Hendrick. And so that's one area. The other one is Little Mountain. And at the last meeting, we told you that we met with a person who actually owns the property that includes Little Mountain, and that's right off Maple Street. And then there's two other properties that are just below that property that come all the way down to High Street, and they're owned by people that don't even live in town. They're not very large properties. One's owned by somebody named it's actually an insurance company, I think Freubel and Dietz, and the other one is owned by a woman named Sarah Monroe. She lives in Southern Connecticut, and she's, from what I hear, an elderly person. I haven't had a chance to track that one down. And the other area is the really wonderful area up in the Holyoke watershed area, the Holyoke Waterworks watershed, the Ty-Carmody. So those are the areas that I have targeted for this. Dan is helping me create the maps. He did a draft, and boy, he's fast. Took him 5 minutes. Took me an hour just to look at it. And then also we have to outline what the ecological or even the community values to these lands. Why did we target those? So I'm working on that language, and I haven't finished it. Okay. So if there's more questions or comments, please ask. Otherwise, what I'm really looking for is a motion that we go forward with this RFP, and it needs to get in their hands no later than Friday. They're going to be meeting next week.
So moved.
Second.
Charlie, second. Did I hear a second?
Yeah, West, second. Yeah.
Thank you. So Charlie made the motion, West second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, we'll do a roll call. Charlie?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Who else we got here? Diana?
Yeah.
That's 4. Who else? Oh, April?
Yes.
Oh, you already said yes. Myself, Palmer, yes. Who have I missed? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, Janet, yep. Unfortunately, my screen doesn't show everybody's face. Janet, was that a yes? And is anybody else I missed that's a regular voting member? No. Okay. So it passed unanimously. That's wonderful. Thank you. So Diana had something to bring up.
Oh, I just wanted to let everybody know that we've chosen a design for the benches at Manhattan Meadows. The same as the ones that are at the Greenberg property up in Westham, which Kestrel Volunteers made. So we have the funds for 2 of them, And we're just looking for volunteers to help build those. We have plans and the materials list and all that. So just putting it out there.
I'm going to add that
we have a crew for one of them, so we need kind of two more.
you do have a crew. It's the Palmer family. My son and my husband and my grandchildren and I are going to build one of them. It looks like Tinker Toys to me, but what do I know?
If anyone's interested, I can send you a photo of the bench and
Yeah, send me over one. I'll recruit some of my friends.
The blueprint.
I'll trick them into it.
But we don't rush out and buy them, the materials, because A, we have a fund for it at a certain store, an account, and B, we have to get the same color. Part of the bench is Trex, and we've chosen a certain color for that. Okay, it'll be very nice.
Where are these going to be assembled? At your home? At someone's home?
Well, I guess, the volunteers would do it in their
at the Palmer's house.
Garage or basement or whatever. And then we could store them maybe at the highway department, or if anybody has, a big, if we get them made that far ahead of time.
I volunteered to.
They probably can go in.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jen?
I volunteered to the Conservation Commission. If you wanted to store them here, you could at our house. We have room.
Oh, okay. That would be great. Yeah. So if we need that room to store them too, that would be lovely.
Here's a question, Diana, that came up about my son noted that they're going to be really heavy. We want them heavy because we don't want them to blow away. He's not.
Yeah, I don't think they're not as heavy as the ones. I mean, yeah, they're not. You're not going to throw them around or anything, but they aren't like super heavy. I don't think. Not like the ones at the rail. Yeah.
Well, what he's not doing. He's not volunteering to carry them.
I happened to see I happened to see them carrying them into Greenberg. I think they had like a little dolly kind of thing and did it with that. But
okay,
yeah,
all right. So that'll have to be
figure that out.
or they can be partially assembled, and sort of the last screws can go in after they're if they're carried down in parts. I'm just assuming that's a possibility.
Too. Yeah.
Okay. So okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment on that. In that, depending on how long the lengths of the Trex decking are compared to the length of the 4-foot bench, perhaps, if you make one bench, but based on the size you buy, you have leftover parts, and it could then be used in another one. So don't have 3 sets of people go out necessarily independently and buying it.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Because
Diana, what's your time frame? What's your time frame on these?
We have, I guess, 2 years. Well, we have to finish the grant, and it all has to be done by the end of 2022. But hopefully, everything's done this summer and fall.
The reason I'm asking is
they were donated by the Friends of Southampton Open Space, the Southampton Women's Club, and the Friends of the Council on Aging. So I plan to get a little plaque made for each one of those.
Great. So is it possible that an order could be put into the same place, and we could, it's possible they could deliver? I'm thinking like Home Depot or is it Fleury Lumber locally here? We like to support local business if we can.
It's Fleury, they have the account. I don't know. I mean, that's problematic. Well,
yeah, they deliver.
I guess if it's all delivered to one place and then other people are involved in making it, they'd have to go to that place and get it. Yeah, it's so complicated.
I think we can probably figure that out,
Yeah. But I just thought, if you know somebody like community service or scout projects or whatever, people looking to build a bench, we've got the plans and we'll have the materials and all that.
Is it possible the Scouts would do it?
Pardon me?
Pardon?
Janet, you're still working with the Scouts, aren't you? Could they do one project? One?
I'd be glad to contact them.
Okay, that's great. All right. Any other questions for anybody about this project? Marla, is there any other comments about any of that?
The only thing would be a caution, because the pressure treated lumber, even though it won't be arsenic laden, it is still hazardous. And so, and again, this is not a kit you screw together. There's a lot of cutting. You have to be cautious about where you, the sawdust flowing in your face with the chromium in it and all copper sulfate or whatever is in it. So it is something that people who are familiar with the power tools and the, well, I guess you'd wear an N95 mask for this sort of thing. So I guess you'd have to find some of those, but it's caution.
It would be, I would say this is an example of where the hold harmless agreement would have to be signed if it hasn't already been signed by the people that are doing it. Is that right, Marla?
That is true.
Okay.
And also we have to fill out the volunteer worksheet as we go along, because that's all part of the match. We have to account for that. So even though you won't be paid as a volunteer, your labor will count. $31 an hour.
That's pretty terrific.
Do they still have a bench on the Alice Brown property that at least a few 5, 7, 8 years ago, it was just two stone curb lines, semicircle, one on top of the other, and they used that as a bench. Is that still up there? Alice Brown.
No, I've never been there.
I believe it is, because Chris sent me a picture of it.
Yeah, there's a stone bench there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
A stone bin?
Yeah.
Stone.
The highway department or someone must have volunteered that stone. Again, it's a curved piece. Nice. Curved piece, one facing down towards the ground, the other one resting on top of it.
Huh.
It's very attractive. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm not starting over though.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is there any other business that cannot wait until next Thursday night?
I have a question for Marla on that property that we're considering buying, Trinseri property. Was there a forest cutting plan like you carried on the Durrell Path property? Was there a forest cutting plan there with the last 5 years, Marla?
I don't know if it's within the last 5 years, but I believe it's within the last 10, because the person we hired to do the logging specifically had done the logging at the Trinseri property. So,
okay.
But my understanding is the property is not under Chapter 61, so I don't know what formal plan was in place, but we know it definitely had been logged, and we're using the same staging area.
Okay.
The Trinseris gave us permission to use it, so that saved us.
Does that impact the evaluation of the property? That's what I thought maybe it might. I don't know.
I have no idea, because that's not why we would be interested in it. If there isn't a formal forest management plan, we would get one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
I just want to make a comment, if I can, and that is that just like any other land purchase or evaluation of any open space to be owned by the town, that there will be people that are very much against this. And we've already gotten a letter to that effect. So just remember that there's a good network of people that are very interested in open space, and we have all the data to prove it, but there are going to be people who will be very against it. So we have to make sure that we get support for this from many corners of the town.
Okay. That's helpful. I think that's, Rini, I'm glad you brought that up, because as you saw in the proposal for the funding from Neighborhood Outreach Project, I identified that we really needed to educate our town residents, all of them, not just the people with parcels, big parcels, but, the little ones like me with just a, half an acre of land here, that, I feel somewhat informed about conservation, but not everybody does. So we need to, and that was identified in our open space and recreation plan, the need for education. And at the end of the last neighborhood outreach project, even the people that were present had more questions and said, we need this kind of education. But I really appreciate that. And if there's any people listening to this meeting or, hearing it after the recording that have questions, please feel free. There is an email called openspace@ townofsouthampton.org that you can send an email, or of course to any of our officials in town. Thanks, Rini.
Can I make a comment on that? So I have some really good information from the class I took that talks about the value in land preservation in terms of the tax rates in town, and how it turns out to be a tax reduction when you preserve land. So I'll send you, Cindy, over the information I have, because that's probably what you want to, something you may want to consider using for education.
Yeah. Is that a copyrighted thing? I mean, is that something we could include, or?
I don't know. I have to look at it. It's from my class, just my notes and stuff. But yeah, I think someone had done a study, and it turns out, it's actually. And I think that's what you want to educate people about, is like, it's better for their taxes in the long run to preserve this land. If they're just concerned about money, that's their thing,
That was the concern. The concern was that A, we don't have the money to keep buying up land, and B, these are tax dollars that we're sacrificing. So that's right to your point, and that's points that we have continuously made, but there are people that don't believe that or agree with it.
Okay, well, I can at least give you data.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, if it's something that can at least be footnoted, and that would be, we'll definitely plan to do. Yeah, that's great, Dan. And every time a house is built, that's more use of municipal services as well.
The economic benefits of land preservation.
All right,
there
good.
It is.
Headed over. Okay, were you going to say something else, Rini?
I was just going to say, is the meeting next Thursday at 6?
Yes, they're all at 6. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, or do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I sent you another email during the meeting of what were you asking for? You're asking for
the ecological value.
No, I sent you something. Never mind. You'll see it in your email.
I'll look for it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay, there was a motion and second, and all in favor. Thank you very much. I'll see you next Thursday.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Go eat dinner. Bye-bye.
Take care.